I think often we're hard on ourselves because we should, that word should, right? We should do this, we should do that. One of the biggest life lessons for me is removing that word from my vocabulary or from my brain.
What if there are things we never had the opportunity to learn? We've all been to school or training, but there are things they never taught us that actually make a powerful difference in life. I'm here to share with you all the pieces you've been missing: mindset, health, success, and more. And we'll all learn together from guests along the way. We may not have learned it the traditional way, but oh my goodness, let's keep learning how to do things differently. OMG, my friends. Hello. I am always excited to be here today. And you know, I say that every time. So, we have a cool episode this week. We're talking about burnout, and maybe that's not the cool part, but we're talking about coming back from burnout. And you have heard me say on other episodes that I've had a lot of different jobs. I've kind of loved them until I really didn't. You heard Jen Liss on episode 14 talk about that. Burnout can come slowly or it can be really sudden and out of the blue. And sometimes we get kind of stuck knowing what to do. How do we handle it? Maybe we feel like a failure. Suddenly we dislike everything that we were working towards. So I think we want to talk about that and help you through it. So my guest today is Sabrina Del Duca. She is a mindset and movement coach and a dance educator. And in 2019, she took a huge risk following burnout, which we're going to talk about. After her 10-year corporate career in advertising, she left her job with no backup plan and really went through a journey of self-discovery to figure out her next chapter. So now she's combined that dance experience, project leading experience, strategic experience, and started her own coaching company in 2020, empowering you to unlock your potential, set meaningful goals, and navigate life's challenges with resilience and courage, just like she did. So she encourages us to rewrite our life and launched her podcast, Get Into Flow, in 2022. So she's a fellow podcaster as well. And I'm really excited to have you join us today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I think this is going to be fun. I can tell.
Me too. I have a good feeling.
Okay, but we have to start with the hard part. So we're talking about burnout today and then how to come back from that. So I think let's start with your story. Tell us,
Mhm.
what was your burnout experience? How did you end up there?
Your introduction about the burnout was totally relatable to me, by the way. That's exactly how I felt on all levels. For me personally, it was a slow buildup. So I was in corporate, great position at an advertising agency. I loved it. On paper, it was an amazing job. And I knew it was. And I got to travel and I got to work with some of the biggest clients, and it was always stimulating until it was too much. So, like you were talking about, you love it until you don't, right?
Yes.
So, I loved it, loved it, loved it until I just had my spirit broken by demanding clients, unfortunately. So, I was a client director, relationship director. So, I was in the middle, making sure the clients were happy, responding to their brief and request, and making sure the creative team was inspired, doing their work properly, managing budgets, managing timing. And in the beginning, that's what inspired me and motivated me, finding solutions, right? And like, okay, we have a challenge, obviously budget constraint. Usually that was the case, right? Or timing constraint. But it's like in the beginning, I was like, okay, let's do this. How can I find solutions and make sure everybody's happy? And okay, that was the creative part of me that was allowed to work. And then what I believe happened is I started to lose my purpose. I started to lose the feeling of fulfillment. So what used to fulfill me in terms of finding solutions, making sure everybody is happy, I began to feel detached from that. And I began to feel like I wanted to create a bigger impact.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling of wanting more led to guilt and shame because I had this amazing job and who am I to question it? And if I'm not an advertising director, what else could I be? What could I do? So the slow burnout was the conflict, the inner conflict of let me try to make this work because it's an amazing job and I worked hard for it. But really my heart was not in it anymore.
Right.
So 2 years of going back and forth, being like, what do I do? And, in those 2 years, I was just slowly becoming a different person to the point where my boss called it out and said, I don't recognize you anymore. You're not the
Wow.
same Sabrina as you were 2 years ago. And even in my mind, I thought it was maybe just a year that I was feeling this way. But he actually advised me, no, I've noticed this for 2 years. So even ourselves, if we think we're hiding it, quote unquote, we're not. We're not hiding it very well. And I'm someone who, I mean, I can't hide my emotions. What you see is what you get. So if I was not feeling myself, and I really did lose myself, I found
Hmm.
myself not knowing how to have conversations because I was no longer inspired, and not getting along with people just because I was so closed off. I was so broken and lost. And I felt stuck because I
Yeah.
didn't know what to do. I thought of maybe leaving for a few months, like getting a doctor's note, and or going on vacation. Like I thought of all these different things, but thankfully, my boss, again, and I'm so grateful for him, he said to me, I think you're done. I think,
Wow.
yeah, he said, he gave me permission in the most encouraging way possible. He said to me, I think you've done everything you needed to do here and you've done a wonderful job, but now you need to find something else. And he encouraged me to go start something new. And he said, and I will never forget his words, I will be at the front of the parade cheering you on when you find that job and find that motivation. He's like, but this is no longer for you. And I want you
Wow.
to understand. He was obviously encouraging me. He wasn't firing me, but at the same time,
Right.
he recognized, if you're not happy, well, the team's not happy, the clients aren't happy. It's in all of our best interests for you to go and find something that makes you happy.
That is such an incredible story because I don't think all of us are lucky enough to have bosses who make that kind of impact on our lives. And he'll probably never even realize how much of a big deal that was. I don't know if you've told him after the fact or not, but that's great.
Yes, I did. I went back to visit the agency because that was the other advantage of leaving on that note. I didn't burn any bridges, right?
Hmm.
Had I stayed longer, I probably would have gotten so angry and resentful at myself that I would have said or done something that I would have regretted. So,
Yeah.
when we're in that state of mind, we never know, right? So, luckily, I left on a good note. I left with everybody encouraging me. So, the following year, I did go back and visit, and I was welcomed with open arms. Everyone asking, what are you doing? What are you up to? And then they see me on social media and they're like, oh my goodness, you're doing great. And like, come and give a workshop, like,
Good.
come back and give a workshop for us. And I did tell my boss the hugest thank you. I pulled him aside and I said, thanks to you, I was able to follow my heart and my dreams, and I really appreciate it. And he kind of brushed it off, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
like, nah, nah. But then I said, no, for real, it was a big deal. And I think for him too, he lived it himself in his
Yeah.
own career and recognized the symptoms, recognized maybe he wished he had somebody like him at the time when he was going through it. And at least now he was able to pay it forward and give me that guidance and support that I needed because I was in that situation.
Yeah, I love that. And, there's something else you said that kind of made me think it's interesting and probably resonates with a lot of people. And that was, I wrote down the phrase in the middle. So I feel like a lot of
Mhm.
times I call this the assistant principal situation because I used to be a teacher. But
Yes.
assistant principals are always stuck in the middle between the parents and the principal and the teachers. And managers and directors in companies often are stuck in the middle between, the up and the down and the client. And that, no matter what you do and no matter how much you love it, it can grate on us. And it's
Mhm.
totally normal.
It
I
is.
just wanted to say I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people for sure.
And you're right, it's totally normal because a lot of us are in that situation, and that's the nature of the job. I think for me, I came to terms with, this is the nature of the job and it's not going to change. Because the
Mhm.
other thing I was trying to do when I was lost in that kind of the burnout buildup, if we can call it that,
Right.
I was looking for solutions to change the structure, change, how do we work? How do we organize it? And then every time I would try to bring change, I was met with resistance, budget
Yeah.
constraints, or like we don't have the staff for that, or we don't, the structure just doesn't work. And I was trying so hard to change that I feel like that also led to my burnout because I kept getting discouraged. I kept getting
Mm,
shut down. And then I kept getting, there was a lack of validation as well,
right.
because I was coming with all these ideas and it was like, no, we can't do that. No, it's not possible. No, this. So that also led to the feeling of, okay, well, I'm trying so hard and nothing's changing. So my reframe, and we'll talk about this, what a reframe is later, but my mindset shift was, in retrospect, now looking back, I needed to understand that this was the nature of the job. It's not going to change. But if I wanted change, I needed to change.
Yeah, yeah.
So putting our energy in the right place.
And it does make sense to try within the system
Mhm,
first.
mhm,
So, I mean, that absolutely makes sense to me. And maybe for some situations that would help. But you're right. If you're just continuously beating your head against a wall,
mhm.
it takes a toll. And I noticed you said guilt and shame,
Oh,
and
yeah.
those are, oh my goodness, so destructive. So, yeah.
Guilt and shame. Why am I not happy? This is my dream job. Anyone would kill for this job. Like all these things that go through your head, right? What are other people going to think? There's the judgment, the opinions of others.
Hmm.
But you can't force something that doesn't feel right.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and that was hard for me to accept. I needed to really understand that, you know what, this chapter is done and that's okay. It was
Yeah.
amazing, it was great, and let's not make it worse than it's becoming by dragging it on too long. You know, let's not make it a run-on sentence. Let's close this chapter and start a new one.
Yeah, I think that takes a lot of courage. And quite frankly, that's what I was about to ask you. So as I glance at my notes,
Yeah.
it's a big risk to
Mhm.
just leave a job that you've trained for and you've been at a long time. So how actually I might know part of the answer. I'm going to ask you how you found the courage to do this, but I'm guessing your boss was a big piece of this, right?
Yes, definitely. Without him giving me that option, I don't think I would have ever left. I think I
Mhm.
would have fallen into the cycle of go on sick leave, come back, stay a little bit, again, go on sick leave, come back. And I know there's a lot of people who do, unfortunately, get stuck in that pattern, in that cycle. But him making me realize that the solution was not just take a few weeks off and then come back and everything's going to be amazing. It was, you need to find something else to do. And until he said that and validated my feelings, I would have never considered it on my own, because that's scary. Because yeah,
Oh
I'm
my
leaving
gosh.
a very secure, safe position and job, and we all got bills to pay. So I don't have a family, but I still have my bills. I feel like people who have families, who have children, it may be a different outcome, because you may not allow yourself, or you may not be able to take that risk because you have children to feed. And I totally understand. I was lucky enough to have that opportunity to say, okay, let's just end this job, let's leave, and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I can't explain what it is exactly that gave me that confidence, but there was an inner confidence and trust that I'll figure it out and it's
Yeah.
going to be okay, contrary to what everybody else said to me in my family and my
Ooh.
surroundings.
Somehow you were able to follow your kind of gut instinct, it
Yes.
seems like. Yeah.
And also, I knew I couldn't stay there any longer because I was sick.
Mhm.
Physically, mentally, things started happening to me physically. And often that's what occurs. We're not listening to those subtle signs. The signs get bigger, louder. I had a freak accident with a concussion. And then something else happened. Like I remember there were just a series of events that kept happening out of nowhere.
Mm.
And that's when I needed to start listening and say, okay, well, there's something that needs to change here.
Yes.
Like, and that's where I also felt that I could take that decision, because if I would have stayed, I would have lost myself so much that I don't know if I would be able to come back from that.
Yeah. And when you see that ahead in your future, it does kind of get a little scary and you realize you have to do something about it for sure.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yes, definitely scary. But I will say that it was exciting as well, because
Mhm.
I had a chance to now figure out what I wanted to do, or just have
Mhm.
the opportunity to think, okay, now what's next? And the last time I
Yes.
thought about that, I was 20 years old, right? Coming out
Right.
of university, coming out of college.
Right.
That's when we make our decisions, and also understanding and being gentle with myself and saying it's okay to change your mind, it's okay to
Yes.
want something different. And that's where the guilt and shame started to subside, because I managed to reassure myself that change is inevitable. we evolve as humans. Why can't our job evolve with us, or our
Good
purpose
point.
as well? So it's okay to change your mind, because that was the biggest part of my guilt. Why am I changing my mind? I feel like we were conditioned as kids to decide on a career early and stick to it for life. And that worked well for our parents' generation, perhaps. But our generation and younger, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to do
Absolutely.
different things. As you know, Cheryl, it's okay to do different things, right?
Absolutely. 100% agree. And I do think a lot of people, now I know I'm older than you, I can tell, but a lot of people in our broad generation know this
Mhm.
too, but there's still the same thing. There's still holdovers of, as you said, we go through school and we pick what we want to do, what we want to major in, whatever it is. And
Right.
then we think that we're not using our degree properly if we don't stick with that or whatever.
Right.
And I would say, after we're out of college for a certain period of time, it doesn't matter. Like, we've got the education of the world. We can go do what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us then what happened. You've decided to
Mhm.
leave. You've kind of gotten the courage to do it, and you ended up really with an amazing business and a whole new mindset.
Mhm.
So what were the challenges to that, and how did you figure that out?
So I left in March of 2019. I decided to give myself the summer to heal and to just relax a little bit before trying to figure something out. Because of my mental state, I really needed that time to just calm myself, get in a good space where I would then be a little more intuitive as to which direction do I want to go in. I didn't want to make any rash decisions or urgent decisions. And luckily the time was there and the opportunity was there for me to just pause.
Mhm.
Then I decided, since I'm a dance teacher and have been for over 20 years, let's do that as a backup. And we're going to
Okay.
come back to that word backup because nothing stays a backup, but let's just start by saying, let's do that as a backup. So let's maybe look into taking a few classes or teaching a little bit just to kind of get myself going and give me the ability to take the time that I need to figure out what do I want to do as a career. But like dance teacher, let's do that a bit on the side. And through a very serendipitous event, as it always is,
Always is. Always
the
is. Yeah.
stars aligned. I was in the right place at the right time, met someone who needed a dance teacher, got me into a high school teaching dance. And now I'm in year 5 of that. And I couldn't be
Wow.
happier. That
Wow.
was the best move I made. Going into that school, building connection with the kids and teaching, but also inspiring and motivating. So that was in the fall of 2020. No, fall of 2019. And then guess what happened in March of
Oh my
2020?
goodness. The
Right. So
pandemic.
the
Yeah.
pandemic, right in the middle. The pandemic for me was a blessing in disguise. Yes, everything shut down, but for me, it gave me the time to be able to do my certifications.
Mhm.
And leading up to that, I should be doing certifications. So school ended, everything ended in March. We were all at home, had nothing to do. I thought, let's brainstorm on, okay, what's my next move? What do I want to be? What do I want to do or go? I was confused because all I knew is I wanted to help people. The impact or the immediate instant gratification I received when I was teaching dance and seeing the confidence and seeing them just so proud of themselves, that's what I wanted on
Yes.
all levels. But I didn't quite know exactly what that looked like besides
Right.
dance teaching. So I just kept saying I want to help people. I was so confused. I ended up hiring a coach. One of my good friends is a coach, a mentor. I said, please help me. Please help me gain clarity on what it is that I want to do. We had one session together and she basically validated you need to be a coach. You can call it whatever you'd like, but you need to be going in that direction and do what inspires you. So over the next few months, I was online. I was doing my health and coaching and nutrition certifications, learning as much as I could, being a student again, which was really fun.
Yes.
Thought of going back to school physically, I was not a fan of. But now that everything was online, it was like, hey, I'm at home in the comfort of my home and I'm just learning. Great. I took so many different classes, psychology, anatomy, I really invested myself in the learning process. And when fall came back around, I did go back to school, but I thought this is an opportunity to also do some coaching and start my own business.
Yes.
And my main signature program I was leading with was basically what I wish I had 2 years back. Are
Mm,
you going through burnout? Are you feeling lost? Are you feeling guilt and shame? It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to change your careers, and let me help you. So that was my first signature course. And that's evolved since then into a very general rewrite your life. So
yeah.
you have the opportunity at any point to rewrite your life. And I refer to chapters a lot, closing your chapter, starting a new one. And it could be as big as a career change like I went through, or it could just be, I want to be a morning person. How do I do that? I want to be the person who runs every day, eats well, right? Like having good habits. So it's all about habits and your identity. And through experience, through coaching people, through also more reading, because I love to learn. I'm a nerd and proud of it.
Same, same,
Yeah.
same.
Yes. So give me all the books, as you can see behind me. Give me all the books, give me all the
Yes.
courses. I'll just keep learning. And I was just absorbing everything that I was reading and learning and figuring out how can I apply this to my coaching practice and bring this to the people that I am impacting.
Fabulous. Fabulous. I'm trying to think of even how to respond to that because what a great story. Over the past few years, as a network marketer, I wanted an authentic way that I could focus on the power of mindset and being myself and create a business. And I found the Social Selling Academy with Kristen Boss. I have learned so much about social selling and direct selling. And if you think that would be great for you too, go to www.bit.ly/SSAOMG and grab your $100 off link there. You know what? When we're going in the right direction, I hesitate to even use the word right. When we're going in the direction that kind of follows our gut instinct
Mm-hmm.
for whatever the new chapter is, I do think there's always, you said, serendipitous things that happen. I really do. Like when
Oh,
things seem to fall into place in this way where you go, whoa, like as I look back, that was incredible. I think
yeah.
it's a good sign that we're on the right path for that moment, for that time.
Oh, totally. I agree. I think those are the universe's little winks. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
let's keep going. We're going in
Yeah.
the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's kind of flip it and talk about the other way because I do think we said this a little bit at first, but we do judge ourselves often
Hmm.
when we think maybe we've chosen wrongly what our job is or we've gone down the wrong path or we've wasted time or we're the guilt and shame from saying, well, why don't I like this anymore? What would you say to help people who are still kind of stuck at that point?
The biggest thing, be gentle with yourself first. Be gentle with your thoughts, with your feelings, and just get curious. Why do you feel that way? And removing the pressure of judgment and just being curious, you allow yourself the space to then maybe find some answers and find some solutions. I think often we're hard on ourselves because we should, that word should, right?
Mm-hmm.
We should do this, we should do that. One of the biggest life lessons for me is removing that word from my vocabulary or from my brain. Because
Agreed.
before I even started my coaching business, that time I was healing, I was doing the work. Oh, I was doing the uncomfortable work of going inward and saying, okay, let's fix whatever needs to be fixed here. And a lot of it came down to how I was just hard on myself, a recovering perfectionist, I like to call myself, right?
Yes.
Expecting so much and getting so disappointed when it doesn't go the way that I thought it needed to go.
Yes.
And just coming to terms with, yes, you want to set your intentions and put them in the right place, set your goals and go in that direction, but be agile, be open to change. Because sometimes, and this is what happened for me, sometimes that path veers in another direction. And if you force yourself to stay on the straight line, you're wasting so much of your energy. And maybe that's not the path you need to be on. That's why it feels so forced. Maybe allowing yourself to just veer left and experiencing what the opportunity is, that'll bring you back on another path.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you're going to get to where you want to go, but it'll happen in the most unexpected way. And it's just
Yes.
leaving yourself open to going with the flow, getting into
Yes.
flow. Right.
Yes. Funny, we should call it that.
Yes.
Yeah, the get curious part in particular is really powerful because I know I've read a lot about how the brain works on this
Mm-hmm.
particular topic. And we get ideas when we can take all the pressure off and just kind of wonder and be
Mm-hmm.
curious and
Mm-hmm.
maybe brainstorm in a very chill way. That's when the ideas come.
Yeah.
And I always think about it like I wish I had a way, and someday I'm going to have a better way, but I always get ideas when I'm driving. And I have read, why is that? And I'm always thinking, well, how do I remember? Like I don't know how to remember this idea that I got while I was driving and now I'm going to forget.
Mm-hmm.
But it's what I've read is it's because the brain is occupied with the driving and you don't have to pay attention. Well, I mean, we should, obviously. I'm not saying don't pay attention, but we know how to do it. And
Yes.
so now it's just habit, and the other parts of the brain can just be kind of working on stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
there's no
Mm-hmm.
pressure and there's no weird emotion going on. And that's
Right.
kind of like the brain just figuring things out as we're being chill about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Leaving yourself open to brainstorm as well and not to have the pressure to have it figured out. Right.
Right.
So even just the brainstorm, sometimes we enter a brainstorm session and there's a clear goal of like, I need to figure it out by the end of the session, or like, we need to have 10 ideas. You're already putting pressure on yourself. You're
Yeah.
already constraining your energy. And for me, I like to think of it as energy. So we are all made of energy. Energy is exchanged between us and felt as well.
Yes.
And within yourself, when you're constantly forcing and trying so hard to keep your ideas or your energy in one direction, you're limiting your energy. It's almost like you're tensing your muscles, and by tensing your muscles, you limit your range of motion. So
Mm.
by controlling or trying to control, because we never really have control fully, but by
Right.
trying so hard to control all of the areas in your life or all the ways it needs to work out, you're trying to control your energy, you're trying to limit your energy. Whereas your energy, in order to be its strongest form, needs to flow, needs to move, needs to be released, and needs to also come back in a different form. So often, we try so hard and we're forcing so much, and why isn't it working out? And we're just kind of like, ugh. But if you just release that pressure, release that control, allow yourself to just breathe and move with it. And that's why they say a lot of times when you're stressed or when you're anxious, move your body, get into a
Mm-hmm.
rhythm, because that moves your energy as well. It gets it unstuck. And the minute your energy is stuck in your body, you're breaking your flow. And also, it results in lower back pain, shoulder pain, right? Notice where we keep our tension. So if you feel like you have little pains here and there, and it's not the result of an injury, but just like, oh, my lower back is hurting, or my shoulders, or my neck, that's where we keep our tension. That's where our energy gets stuck, because we don't allow it to flow. We don't allow it to move. So by breathing, by moving, by just releasing all of that you're holding on to, including expectations, including attachments to outcome, by releasing that energy, you're allowing yourself to just flow through and for the outcome to present itself, and
Yeah.
trusting that you will get there in the best way possible and not having to have it all figured out, which goes back
Yes.
to my career. Like, I trusted that I would get there. I didn't know where exactly that was, but I trusted that it would be aligned with my intentions. And instead of forcing myself, okay, I need to do A, B, C to get to this goal, and I need to be there, it was like, okay, I know what my intentions are. I know what area I want to go into. Let's just one step at a time get myself closer to that. And
Yes.
then as I move closer, 3 doors opened. Okay, intentionally, where do I want to be? Let's try door number 1 and see what happens, instead of like, oh my goodness, which door is it? And then we get anxious because
Yes.
we're afraid to choose the wrong thing.
Right, right. I fully agree, first of all. And that's fascinating. And the very first episode of this podcast, actually, I talked about everything being energy. And there's an Albert Einstein quote that I love about that. And so it's funny that you said that because it's so powerful. Tapping is another way that we can kind of get things moving when we get stuck in feelings and energy too.
Right.
So I think everybody who's listening, you might want to rewind for like 2 minutes and hear that again.
That was pretty intense few minutes right there. Yeah, I realized that.
I mean, it's good,
Yeah.
really powerful. And I want to ask this question because this came to mind as you were talking.
Mhm.
I think that maybe one of the challenges that might come up for people when we're trying to be curious and kind of allow this to be more of a flow is, what if there are kind of reality, time, and money constraints that they're dealing with? And I
Totally.
can see, someone trying to figure out where they want to go next and then just not being able to get over this. Where is the money to pay the house payment going to come from? That
Totally.
kind of thing. What
Yeah.
would you say about that?
That is definitely a reality for a lot of people. For me, how that looked, that's when I decided, let's go teach a few dance classes,
Right.
right? So think of, what do you do well and easy that you can make some cash on the side as you're allowing yourself to figure this out. So don't go and look for another full-time job necessarily, but maybe you could work part-time somewhere. Maybe you could work in a very calming coffee shop, right? It also depends on where you are at and what you need, because if you're leaving corporate like I wasn't going to go back as a freelancer in an agency because that's what I needed to get away
Right.
from, right?
Right.
So like, yes, that's what I was good at and that's where the money was, but mentally I couldn't be there right now at that time, right?
Yep.
So for me, I do have dance as a backup, but I could have gone to work in a coffee shop or something that I deemed less stressful. Or maybe I could have gone to work in a bookstore because I love books, right? Like finding that part-time job just so that you can get that income and you can help yourself pay those bills because they will not pay themselves. I understand
Right.
that there's a reality there, but also give you the freedom. That's the important part. Give you the freedom to be able to figure out what you want to do next, because that's not going to happen overnight. That takes you sitting with yourself, going through, there's so many exercises online as well that you could do to figure out which direction you want to go in. Also, you could do it alone, but I would recommend to do it with someone, meaning a coach or
Yes.
someone who has experience, because they can help guide you. I did have a coach in the beginning and then I did the rest by myself, which was long, right? Like I did it, but it was long and it was lonely. So I would have appreciated, thinking back, I would have maybe stuck with my coach a little longer just to have her help me through some of the key things that I didn't necessarily have to try to figure out on my own. She would have led me there, like point A to point B.
Right.
But yes, having that security of a part-time job of some sort, I
Right.
think would reassure people and have even the freedom in their mind to say like, okay, a little bit of income is coming in. Now I can have the creative energy.
Right. And it's so important to say this, I think, because I can see someone thinking, I've just left this corporate job that required a degree, and now I'm going to go work in a coffee shop or a bookstore, which, by the way, I would totally work in a bookstore too.
Yeah.
So that feels like a huge step down, and I'm doing something wrong, and this is bad. But that's not the case at
Mm.
all. It's a way to allow yourself some room to figure things out. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And step down compared to what? Compared to who? Says who, right? So this is
Exactly.
where you need to, again, be gentle with yourself and say, it doesn't matter. Are you happy? Will you be happy? Right? Like think of yourself and put yourself at the core and say, okay, well, if someone judges me for leaving my corporate job and going to work in a bookstore, they don't know my reality. They have no place to judge me, right? They don't know what I'm going through. So I would say it's hard, but try not to let the opinions of others influence your decision and just figure out, hey, if you can allow yourself the time to spend a few hours a week, make some money, and then the rest of your time you're fully focused on your next career move, that would be the best solution.
I agree. It's smart. It's interesting how we let what we think other people think have a lot of control sometimes.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This came up in a conversation not too long ago that our identity is based on what we think other people think of us.
Right.
Which,
Yeah.
when I say it, it's that confusing, right? But so our identity, who we are, is based on who you think I am,
Right.
which makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
But that's what
Yeah.
we do because we base our entire way of being on what are they going to say? How are they going to react? I think it's time that we bring that back to ourselves and we just focus on ourselves.
Yeah. And I can see people needing, I'm glad you said a coach is a good idea.
Hmm.
I can see people needing someone to go through a change like this.
Hmm.
And maybe it's a spouse or partner, maybe it's a coach, whatever, but it is maybe a little scary to just kind of say, I don't care about what anybody thinks, I'm going to go try this new thing. So I mean, we're pack animals, I suppose. So
Yes.
to have someone along for the ride is probably an important thing, to not let ourselves fall victim to all the other stuff.
Yes, good point. Because the way I was speaking is true. It could come off as do your own thing, you're a lone wolf. But that's not what I mean. It was more the opinions of others, because the general opinions of others, I
Yes.
feel, influence our decisions way too much.
Agree.
But people close to you, who you trust, who you know have your best interest at heart, your spouse, your family, close family members you know, friends, because I said family, but I know a lot of people.
Pick carefully. Yeah.
Pick carefully. That's what I was getting at. Yes. Choose wisely. But I do believe that it's so important to have the encouragement, the support of others, because without that, I don't think I would have been able to keep the motivation, because you can only have motivation for yourself for so long. Having the support of others, the cheerleaders around you, and again, pick wisely, choose wisely
Yes.
who these cheerleaders are. I think that is so important to keep you going. I don't think, you know, we need to do anything by ourselves. I think we're fully capable. And I know a lot of women, and myself included, it's the mentality of, I could do it. I got this. I'll do it by myself. I'm sure you can, but you don't need to.
Right.
Right? You can have the support. You can, and it feels good to have that encouragement. So I do recommend having a few people around you who you can fully trust and turn to, maybe bounce ideas off of. I think it's important to also talk about how you're feeling and have them validate your feelings. And again, it's important who you let into that circle, but it needs to be one that's supportive and that's going to help you progress on your personal journey for sure.
Right, right. I'm glad we went through kind of all the sides of that. That's really good. So I'm also looking at the time, and we've been having such a lovely chat, but let's see if we can wrap up a couple things here.
Yes.
So are there any, this is such a big question, so I'm sort of hesitating on how to ask it, but are there any kind of tools or methods that you could leave us with for
Mhm.
people who are recognizing, okay, I need to start shifting my mindset a little bit, and maybe it's after a burnout, it's a big life change, or maybe it's smaller things, but
Mhm.
do you have any recommendations that maybe people can start now or try now?
For sure. The first thing I would say goes back to what we were discussing earlier, getting curious. So noticing where your thoughts are, how your mood is, getting curious, but also the awareness. So for example, if I react negatively to what somebody said, noticing and having awareness of, why am I reacting that way? Is it really about what that person said, or are my thoughts going back to an old pattern that I am anticipating this is going to reoccur, but I have no idea. In the moment, it's a completely new situation. So I'll give you an example of the infamous "we need to talk." Right? The "we need to talk" is always serious, but the "we need to talk" doesn't necessarily have to be. But I feel like we've all experienced the "we need to talk" in such a serious way that immediately our mind goes there. And then we're off to the races. Our thoughts are going, oh my goodness. And we've created this entire story in our mind. And all the person said to us was, we need to talk.
So true.
We're already like, okay, I'm in trouble. You want to break up. You don't want to be friends anymore. You know, like so
Right.
much has happened. We've decided the outcome on our own based on our pattern. So I would say when you have that immediate gut reaction, because it is kind of a feeling that comes up when someone says something like that, catch yourself. The awareness is the first step of, okay, why am I feeling this way? Do I know that that's what this person is about to say to me? Is it something bad, or am I anticipating it based on my past patterns? And how can I break my pattern? How can I just create distance, which would be number 2, create some distance between yourself and the situation so that you could see it a little more clearly with a different perception. And that's where the reframing aspect comes in, where you can change your thoughts, change how you view the situation. Because when you're in it and you're too close and you're wrapped up with the emotion, there's no reframing that can be done.
Yeah.
We need that distance. We need to step back. We even need to, change your mind, come back to it. Okay, maybe they need help with something. Maybe, like it doesn't have to be bad all the time, or maybe they're in a rush and over text message it came off as dramatic, but it's really just, oh no, I just haven't talked to you in a while. Let's talk. Right? Like how many
Oh my
times when
gosh, so
finally
true.
finally we talk and it's like, oh, you just want to see how I was? But why'd you have to be so dramatic? But they're not dramatic. You're dramatic. You're the one
Yeah.
making up all of that in your mind. So the
Yes.
mindset shifts. The mindset is really, how are you viewing things? What is your outlook? And when you're always in your patterns and in your conditioned behavior, we get so wrapped up in it that it's hard to sometimes stop ourselves, catch ourselves, and say, wait a second, am I actually responding to what they're saying, or am I reacting based on what I've experienced in the past?
Right.
And so the curiosity, the awareness is the first step of really getting used to being aware of how your thoughts are, catching yourself in the patterns, and then being able to say, okay, well, let's put some distance and let's reframe and think of another way of seeing this, because it's all perception.
Yeah, I love that. And that's absolutely a perfect first step, because it's just kind of starting to understand ourselves
Yeah.
and how we're going through life, which if we can recognize it, then we can figure out, do we want to do something about it?
Definitely. Because if
Yeah.
we have no idea and we just keep going with the cycle and we're reacting without the recognition, then we don't realize that there's something that has the potential to be changed. We just
Right.
feel like, how many times, oh, that's just the way I am. Yeah, to a
Yes.
certain degree, but so many people, that's just the way I am. Okay, but do you want to be that way? Because you have a choice. It all
Right.
comes down to choice. And I think a lot of people give up their power, right? But you have a choice. That's just the way you are. Okay, but is it hurting other people? Is it the best way that you could be? And if not, and if you're hurting other people in the process, let's rethink how we can change that part. But you need to want to change it first. And that
Agreed.
awareness is key.
I love it. That feels like a great mic drop there. Like, again, rewind and listen to the last few minutes. Well, tell us how people can find you or get in touch with you.
My website would be one of the great ways to get in touch with me. So it's my name, sabrinadelduca.com. And I have my coaching information there, podcast information there as well. But my podcast is available on all the streaming platforms, and it's called Get Into Flow, the Mindset Shifting Podcast. I'm also on social media, primarily on Instagram. My handle is Duchess Sabrina. Duchess is my dance name.
Love it. Love
Duchess
it.
Sabrina. And I also have an account for my podcast, which is Get Into Flow Podcast.
Perfect. So I will put all that in the show notes as well, so that people can
Amazing.
find you. And yeah, this has been great. So I have to ask you the most important, not the most important question, but anyway, my favorite question that I ask everyone, which is, let's say that you are trying to get yourself into a better mood, raise your energy, raise your vibration. What is your favorite song to listen to in that case?
This is a very difficult question for a dancer, because I have an entire playlist of mood uplifters, or like songs that I just want to get up and dance. But the first one that comes to mind whenever I'm asked is always my go-to, which is Show Me Love by Robin S. It's a 90s dance song.
I think I remember that song, and that is a new one. And I love how few repeats there are when I ask this question. It's amazing.
Great.
So I think I remember that one. Okay, I'm excited to add that
It's
one.
it's in the realm of Finally by CC Peniston. There's like all those
Yes,
songs with like strong lead female vocals and like some good uplifting background music. And yeah, it's a good one. I hope everyone
perfect.
gets up and dances when they hear
Movement is key, right? So there we go. Yeah, perfect. Well, I will add that to the playlist. And listeners, remember, you can find it on Spotify or Amazon Music. It's called Mood Lift, OMG Teach Me. So there we go. I love that one. I'm gonna have to dig back into the 80s and 90s a little bit for some of these too.
There's some good ones. And the music, anything New Jack, hip hop, New Jack swing,
Mm.
all of that music was so upbeat. Motown Philly by Boys to Men,
Oh, great one.
all of that music. So many, Tony, if you remember them.
Yes.
Yes. So all of that music will get you up and dancing for sure.
I love that. I love that you were able to come and share your story. And I know that, whether somebody's going through a major burnout issue right now. Or as you were saying, they're just thinking about, I need to make a change on
Mm-hmm.
something.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to be really helpful. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, for having me and giving me the opportunity and holding space for me to share my story. I hope it was helpful.
I think it was. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. OMG, I would be so honored if you would take a moment, leave a rating, leave a review, or take a screenshot and share on your social media. Let's get this message out further into the world. Now it's time to head down to the show notes to see the resources I mentioned. We may not have learned this before, but it sure is powerful now.